You know, the discard pile when you're playing cards, like you're playing something like gin rummy, right? And so if you're playing rummy, right, the cards, you pile them up, but then you hand them back out again. And that's what I like to do with our ideas. I never like to throw them in the trash, shred them, anything like that. We recycle our ideas in the discard pile. So I'm discarding it for now, but 2 years from now, there might be new technology. There might be a new system.
You are now listening to the highlight reel builder for authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Team Member, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself up next. Today's episode is sponsored by the brand new Northbound to Your Success shop, where you can buy the wonderful logo, advance others to advance yourself in t-shirt form, mug form, heck, even a phone case if you like a phone case. Either way, click on shop on goingnorthpodcast.com, cop a t-shirt, hoodie or two, and be sure to tag the host when you do, so that way I can give you a shout out on a future episode of the podcast. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast. We got another super special, awesome human for you today, and she's actually closing out Women's History Month for 2022, y'all. That's right, 1 year past the age where the millennium got the drink, because today's guest, we got a powerhouse guest for you today. Because not only is she a mom and a wonderful wife, she's also an influence strategist and well as a seasoned media expert with over 2,600 plus interviews. You heard that right, folks. 2,600 plus interviews from her articles in Authority Magazine, BuzzFeed, as well as being a wonderful contributor to Inc.com magazine, and even from hosting multiple shows of her own and guesting on multiple shows. So let's give it up for the one, the only TH herself, the terrific and heavily Tracy Hazzard. How you doing today, Tracy?
Oh, Dom, I'm doing so good. Love your energy and love this show.
Oh yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And my goodness, like you and your husband are freaking geniuses, because like the whole Podetize wonderful brand and business you got going on, when you mentioned a certain little trick that your platform offers that sets you apart from probably everybody else. It's like, wait a second, I just realized what the heck they're doing.
Well, good. I'm glad. We're kind of like the hidden secret, which is, what we're struggling to come out of. But that's that stage of business that everybody is, where, you've got your massive fans at the beginning, and then they build up, and then it's ready to kind of just like take off. That's right where we are.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So my goodness, so with all this success and more to come, did you ever see yourself being where you are today at the age of 12?
At the age of 12, I think my world, and it's funny because I have a 12-year-old right now. So, thinking about that, what it was like, and she just told me today or yesterday that she wanted to start a podcast. And so, we've had this podcasting business for 6 years now, almost 7. And she just said, finally decided, oh, this is kind of cool. My parents are doing this fun. I'd like to start a podcast. And so, I think I never imagined this is where I would be. I imagined having, a business, being a professional, having that kind of career minded set. I always had that, but did I ever imagine I'd be kind of out in the front of the media world? No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't see myself as a, front stage kind of person.
Even growing up as a blonde as a little one and eventually becoming a brunette.
Yeah, I mean, I turned blonde. I was blonde at birth, but turned brunette really quickly. But my little blonde girls, because I still have blonde girls in the family, they're always reminding me, hey, it's fun to be a woman. It's fun to be a girl. And, hey, sometimes we get to be in the limelight.
Oh yeah, that's right, especially when it involves trips to Egypt. That's right indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, you heard about my story. Yeah. I was a little girl and my dad was traveling. We were traveling to South Africa where we lived for a couple of years. He was doing a project there. He was the head of a project management for the Sasol pipeline, which is a large oil and gas pipeline out there. And I was probably 7. And we were traveling through Egypt on the way. And it was really an amazing trip because we got to see King Tut's tomb that they had just uncovered. That's how old I am. I'm dating myself into the 70s here, as you might know if some of you are out there. But it was so cool because we could walk through the Cairo Museum and you could almost touch them. I mean, they were laying out on tables. They were still cataloging everything. They had just found everything. So it's pretty amazing. But on the way in, they don't get a lot of blondes, and especially blonde curly haired little girls. And so my hair was still relatively blonde at that time, and my mom and my sister both have really dark hair, and so I looked even blonder in comparison. And my father was so afraid that they were going to pick me up and kidnap me because people kept reaching out to touch my hair. And that was all they wanted to do. They just wanted to touch my hair. And it was just this kind of thing. Like, I mean, nowadays you feel claustrophobic at the airport if people got this close to you. But back then they were just like throngs of people waiting to welcome you when you came in, and you were just walking through that. And as there were just people touching my head and touching my hair as we were going through. And my dad was so freaked out.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And then I guess one of them actually had to capture it for ransom for like 10 minutes, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah. So one of the amazing things about, and I mean, I have to say my trip to Egypt, I mean, even though I was young and I don't have a ton of like really clear memories, but this trip was very clear because when you get to, ride around and go near the pyramids in that kind of way, it's just, it leaves this mark on your mind, and it's, indelible. You can't get rid of it. And so we got to go on camel rides out in the desert around the pyramids. I mean, they're not blocked off. It's not like it was all roped off and everything. I have no idea what it was like today, but this is quite a long time ago. And it was just amazing trip, and we're all there, and my mom and I are on my mom and my sister are on a camel, and my dad and I are on one, and they're holding ransom for all of us to be returned, basically, especially us young girls. And so it's really I think it was certainly not something that my dad was panicking over. Thank goodness. He was like, okay, this is just, this is what they do to get a little more income. And so you have to tip them some more and you get to go back.
Well, that's one heck of a wonderful mindset to have. So, my goodness, probably the wonderful engineering brain of Daddy. That's right.
That's
Indeed.
right. Yeah. I mean, he was like, okay, what do I got to do to solve this problem and get them home? Pay a little more money. It's
That's
kind of par for the course being a dad of girls. My husband can attest to that.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It's like being a player growing up. It's like God's got you covered, buddy. Daughter's
That's
like
right.
daughter. So my goodness, and I'm pretty sure that was just one of many trips that actually expanded your mind as a wonderful younger lady, because you're still young, because you're not 85 collecting Social Security yet. So do you believe your parents actually influenced your thinking today, where you're so darn creative and have so many businesses?
I think I'm so lucky to have such great parents who, truly love me from the moment I was born. I've said this before on other podcasts, but I am so grateful to be loved my entire life. I was loved all the way through, in the moment I met my husband in college, then he loved me. So everything has been continuous love for me, and that makes an environment in which you can thrive and be you. Right. You aren't worried about that. And that is such a gift in the world. And I strive to bring that out. I want people to feel from me that they're loved too. Right. Whether it's they're my client and they feel supported and loved, or they're my children and they feel supported and loved. Right. It doesn't matter. That's the way I want to live my life, because that's what they gave me. And in the balance of that, I had an engineer and an artist. So the two of them combined created, the businesswoman that I am today, because I mean, always thinking about how you're analyzing something and then how you're innovatively approaching them, right? You're always looking at things from both viewpoints at all times. It was like dinner conversation continually.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. Heck, even funny enough, I guess with the wonderful mom being an artist, I guess that led you to inspire to publish a kid's book that's probably hidden in the deepest dark realms of the internet now that you really get to talk about.
I can't believe you found that. Yeah. So it's called Penguin's Chill Spot. And I had my daughter who's, now approaching teenagehood. So she's going to be mortified. And I hope she never hears this podcast so that I can talk frankly about her. Because my girls always say, Mom, don't talk about me. Right. That's what they're common as, don't talk about me. So anyway, but my daughter was probably going through that stage that a lot of, you know, 3 to 5 year olds. It's kind of that toddlerhood moving into young childhood, and where they're just not coping well with the emotional strains that are going on. So they're too emotional. Everything's overwhelming them, and they have meltdowns, and they need to have a calm down spot. So it's actually a product I designed. So we designed these beanbag chairs that had these creative patterns on it, and they had characters that went along with it. So it was a beanbag chair that looks like a penguin, and it's got this cute polka dotted fabric on it. And we designed them for Target. And to go along with it, I designed these soft cover books that were planned that they would be slipped into the pocket so that you could use your beanbag like a chill spot. And so it's
Ooh.
rather than a timeout, we don't want to call it a timeout, but give them a moment to decompress. And they could read their book. Penguin decompresses in his time, and then you can decompress as well. And so it helps. It was supposed to help you chill out, and so I wrote it actually for her, and then t- uh, I presented it to Target. They loved the concepts, but they just never picked it up, and definitely didn't do the book. But I had done all the illustrations. We had done all the illustrations and all the writing of it. So we said, why not just publish it and see what it's like to publish a kid's book on Kindle? And so that's what we did. It's only available on Kindle.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, my goodness, that's freaking interesting. I love that concept, indeed, especially the pocket for the book. So, my goodness, I guess since Target said no, I guess you figured, okay, might as well just publish the book and then go on to the next idea.
There's always a next idea, right?
That's true, especially for creative minds.
That's right. I mean, for us, before we started our podcast, we had a product development and design business. And so we probably, I designed hundreds of juvenile products, hundreds of, I think I designed over 800 office chairs, uh, office furniture, home goods, like all kinds of things that you buy every day at Costco, Walmart, Target. Just probably not a lot of food and not a lot of fashion. Those are probably the only categories we didn't do much in. But everywhere else, we designed things that we had to design them in dozens and hundreds, and present them and get buyers to buy into them. So getting really comfortable with idea generating, and then also giving up those ideas, not holding them so precious that they become your babies and you've got to do them even if they're no good. And so getting comfortable with that was really easy for us. So we always knew there was going to be another idea, another project, another, and in our case, another company right around the corner.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. But hey, maybe you should probably bring back the Penguin's chill spot, but make it for adults this time, because folks
Make it for
need it.
adults. It needs a bigger beanbag. I agree.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because my goodness, heck, even funny enough, and since intros aren't allowed to be 85 and a half days long, that kind of makes so much sense how you actually influenced and casted branded content that is $2 billion worth of content out there. So my goodness, is there like with all these ideas you create, do you like keep an idea journal and you just pick one and then you try to go all in on it for a certain amount of time and then move on to the next idea? Like, how does that even work? Because I'm pretty sure your brain moves like a million miles a minute.
Well, I do keep a journal, more of a sketchbook journal, because I'm always drawing ideas too, because I have that creative side. But so it's more like a free flowing sketchbook. journal. And so I generate ideas and things come up. And sometimes I have, hand it over to the team because I think it's far enough along and I've got team members to help out with those things. Sometimes I brainstorm with my partner and husband, Tom, and we just, we'll brainstorm the ideas and really say, hey, is this worth pursuing to the next level? But what we believe in is something called market proof, meaning that if there is an idea and you don't talk about it, you're going to keep it all hidden, pull it all in your journal, you're likely to fail. But if you're going to go out there and you're going to talk about your idea, you're going to get input from others, you're going to find out if someone wants to buy what you have to sell in some way, shape, or form, then you're going to have a better sense of whether or not you should pursue something. Our podcasting business was simply that. We were podcasting for ourselves. And then at some point, someone said to us, hey, what you're doing is really successful. You got 100,000 listeners on your first podcast in 5 months. How did you do that? And then when I told them what we were doing, they said, well, would you just do it for me? And here's my credit card. And that's literally how the business got started. So we always look for these ways to take our ideas and kind of proof test them. And if they come out of that proof test, then we move them into some more significant development mode. But we really don't spend a lot of time. We find ways to very low cost and speed proof them.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful right there indeed. It's powerful right there indeed. And it's good that you actually do that. And I feel like a lot of folks have trouble with going to at least the market proof phase. So, my goodness, like, how does that work with you as soon as you get an idea and you have like a good gut feeling about it? Like, how does that even work and how do you stay focused with that?
Well, that's by having a process. So we the first three stages of a 7-step process that we use is prove it, price it, plan it. So we actually price it second because you have to figure out I can make this thing but it might cost off the charts and no one's ever going to buy it. So before I go into planning mode, I better know enough about what I can price it for in terms of what the market will bear so that in my planning process, I can vet against that. So we actually put pricing as our second model always. And so we prove it, we price it, we plan it, and we look at it from that stage. And then either goes back to the drawing board and it keeps kind of cycling through that stage until we get it to where it needs to be and we move forward, or we abandon it right at that point at the planning. If we cannot achieve the price point, if we can't do these things, we table them. And I like to call it like, the discard pile when you're playing cards. Like you're playing something like gin rummy, right? And so if you're playing rummy, right, the cards, you pile them up, but then you hand them back out again. And that's what I like to do with our ideas. I never like to throw them in the trash, shred them, anything like that. We recycle our ideas in the discard pile. So I'm discarding it for now, but 2 years from now, there might be new technology. There might be a new system. Today there's a lot of products that we launched in the last 5 years that we couldn't have launched because we didn't have Amazon 20 years ago, because we didn't have a place where they could handle all the shop for us and we could just worry about the product itself. So when we think about all the changes and all the things that have come along, there's going to be some more changes in the next few years and your idea might have viability, but being able to, table it, put it in the discard pile, put it away for a little bit, and it might come in and it might be a winning hand next time.
I can see how why you're so darn popular and so darn good at what you do. Because my goodness, she's dropping gold bar after gold bar, y'all. The 3 P's, and she's got 4 more hidden somewhere that you need to dive into after the episode. And of course, the wonderful Prove It Planet. Ha, butched it. All right. Anyways,
Prove it, price it, planet.
there we go. There we go. Yes, indeed. The 3 magical P's, indeed. Because that's so darn true. Because you have to really prove like you really know what you're doing, and it can actually deliver results for people. Like that's just so amazing. Then the pricing, then the plan as well, and then of course just tabling it and then recycling it later. Because sometimes folks lose hope after if they even get through those 3 P's, and so eloquently said by the wonderful Tracy, and just not even revisiting the idea. Because you're so right. Like Amazon 20 years ago, they were just known for books. Like they weren't fulfilling everything for everybody like they are now today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's so much today that we take for granted that, I mean, I think about my first business. We had to like code a website and shopping cart from scratch. You never have to do that kind of stuff anymore. Like I know there's a lot of millennials and Gen Zs out there who are thinking, yeah, it's still hard in business today. It's hard in a different way, but you should feel so lucky that you can concentrate on the things that are core value to the business, where I think we got a lot of our money spent and a lot of distraction on building things. It was like reinventing the wheel again and again.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. Yeah. That is the beautiful thing about being alive today. It's just the ease of access to so many wonderful tools. Because just building a car from scratch back then, one can only imagine the pain and uphill battle that was.
Yeah, you can imagine all the security problems, right? Do you think we have hacking and security issues now? You should have been back then.
Oh, I believe it indeed. I definitely believe it. So my goodness. So since you've been on, I'd say around a good 5 boatloads of interviews on the guest side of the game, and you host a bunch of podcasts of your own, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on podcasts?
That's such a great question. I love that you're asking that, Dom. Most people don't really ask about value, right? You don't ask about where did you build value, because we always ask, we want the story, we want the inspiration, we want that side of it, but where did you feel that you built the most value in the world? That's, I think, a harder thing, and it's something that I think about all the time. I'm always looking at whatever we're doing. It could be, designing a new service program for our clients or designing a new webinar. It doesn't matter what it is, but I'm always looking at that maximum value that I can provide for someone. There's so much of the world is built on minimum viable product or minimum viable anything. And I think that's terrible. It's a terrible approach to the world to me. Look, I get you got to bootstrap and you've got to pull yourself out. But if you're not going for the thing that's going to bring the most value into the world, then why are we doing it? Right? I want to bring high value to everything that I do, whether it's just an interview, right? And I'm just having a conversation, or I'm writing a book, or I'm producing a company. I want to produce that maximum value for everyone involved, because that's how, you live in your full potential.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right indeed. And I love that you brought up the word value, because that was actually something at a love-hate relationship a couple years ago, because folks would always say, be like, hey, I want to add value to your listeners. I guess, well, from a podcast host standpoint, I would hear that a lot. And then I'd be like, dude, like the value's already out there. People are already valuable just for being alive. Like what he's saying. And then after a while, I was like, okay, all right. Like value just helping folks to unleash their value, at least from a coaching standpoint, and helping them to really tap into their gifts. And like my goodness, like you've tapped into your wonderful gifts of your creative mind and entrepreneurial spirit and tenacity. So my goodness, freaking love it indeed. Freaking love it indeed.
Well, I
So I
think, I think when you're saying that and people are pitching you, and I get it all the time because I get some really bad guest pitches, right? I'm sure
yes.
the more popular your show is, yeah, the cringy emails. There are a lot of those cringy emails out there, and I get them all the time. Like, I feel like there used to be that, when the we came out, the WII, the we, there used to be, we have a problem. And it would be like people throwing things at their TV accidentally because their we was going wild and stuff like that. But this is kind of how I see like podcast guesting gone wild. And we get these crazy, awful emails, and some of them from really good agencies. And they're just all about them. How can I add value? Here's my value. And they're giving you that. Value is servant leadership, right? I'm serving your audience here. I'm being aware of it. I'm serving you as the host. If I'm not in servant leadership mode in what I'm doing, then it's really not value that you're bringing. It's, self-serving value, right? It's self-serving value. It's not external value.
Boom. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Have you ever thought of writing a book just like from your mindset and perspectives in the future, just out of curiosity?
I'm actually working on two right now that are for podcasters. I've got another one on my back credenza that's been there for a really long time. I joke about it. And I joke about it all the time that I've had the longest running book sitting there, but every time I go to write it, my podcast is so much more updated than my book that I have to feel like I have to rewrite it again. And that's why it never gets out there. I love the speed of podcasting. So it's kind of why the books haven't happened yet. But I promised myself this year we would get our 2 podcasting books out. One is about marketing your podcast and the other is about starting a podcast, should you want to do that. And they're going to come out this summer. So they are on their way. They're in final edit. So we have managed to move this one off of, as Tom and I tend to call it, permanent potential. We have a lot of things that you put into permanent potential that you'll never actually get to because it's not a priority for you. And the books had to move to a priority. So we did do that. But I think maybe I always wanted to be a writer. It was something that I think, sort of the creative side of me, I really enjoyed writing. And I thought that I would go to journalism school, for college. I didn't, I went to art school, but I thought that I would do that. And I thought that I would become a writer in a magazine. And so when I got my first column for Inc. magazine, I was ecstatic and I called my dad up immediately and he said, "You won't believe what happened. They offered me a column writing about innovation for Inc. magazine. I'm so excited about this." And my dad read every single one of my articles, that came out, and there were well over 400. And it was just this kind of like, bonding that we have because we both love reading and love books so much. And so that was kind of my foray into writing. But I actually really, at the end of it just kept going bad. Like the idea of journalism has just floundered to the point that I'm so glad I'm not a part of it and that that's not my career and that I could do it and say I did it. But maybe someday in retirement, I'll write a different style book, maybe something fiction, maybe something just inspirational, but something just for me.
Well, looking forward to it indeed. Looking forward to it because you got a lot of knowledge in that noodle. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Because folks need to read up. And you're so right about the speed of podcasting. Heck, even COVID, like my reading level suffered because I switched over to podcasts for content consumption. So
Right.
right
It's
about
it's
that.
like we go through phases of it. Now, I'm a big reader. I do read every single night. I'll probably read about, at least 100 books a year on average. I did have a year where I read almost 365. Almost. I read like 350. It was the year I was pregnant. So I spent a lot of time on bed rest. So I had a lot of time with my legs up and a book in my hand. So
I knew it had to be an influence somewhere. I'm like, wait a second. 300.
yeah.
Wait a second.
And then this is the thing, is like, I'm not discerning about what I'll read. So I read even bad books because I think you learn some things from them. Like you learn how not to write maybe. But you learn about like why people are doing things, why they put things out into the world. And, the business book world is terrible. There's a lot of really bad publishing going on there. And and so much, I must say, self-serving value, as we go back to talking about it, that it's not really thinking about the external and really thinking about who your readers are and how this is adding to the world. It's really about, oh, here's my calling card, it's a book. And that's kind of not my approach to it. So that's also been why it's been harder to write a book.
Definitely understand that indeed, especially nowadays where the popular thing, which is well, everything has its good and bad, is where these multi-author books where it's like, hey, you want to write a chapter in a book, become a published author. It's like, sweet, I don't have to write a whole book and I get to join people in the networks. Like, sweet, calling card, hooray. On the other end, it's like, oh, darn, kind of the same old stuff as before. Nothing like adding true value to people.
Well, I'm going to give you my big secret, Tom.
Ooh.
So my big secret, so I get asked to write asked to write chapters in people's books all the time because they want my name, right? They want to add my name to the list of them because it drives other authors. So a lot of those books are pay to play. I don't ever pay for those, but I get asked to write for them a lot. But what I do is I simply go to one of my podcasts or a couple of my podcasts, group them together, transcribe it, and write the article from there. So I never really have to sit down and work that hard. I just really, spend a couple of, maybe maximum 90 minutes writing it at that point. And I knock out my chapter, send it over to somebody, and I'm done.
Boom. That's right. Value bomb at the value bomb indeed. That's right. That's right indeed. Tracy's giving you a whole mall of jewelry stores today, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right indeed. All these wonderful gems indeed. Because that's freaking genius right there. Like, that's like next level right there. Because, like, oh, transcribe a book, but it's like, wait, taking past content and repurposing it for a chapter to a book and polishing it up. But, like, dude, that's so freaking amazing. I don't think I've ever even heard of that wonderful idea before.
Well, I'm good. I'm glad I can give you something new.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, heck, even a fun question for you. Since the other two books aren't out yet about podcasting, just bringing back to the Penguin's chill spot. So, if that wonderful book was a food item, what would it be and why?
Hmm. I think that we've got to have comfort food in the world, right? We all have to have comfort food. It's the one thing that, hopefully it's not making us fat, right? We need that comfort food that's healthy, right? And that's hard to come by. But for
Yeah.
me personally, like that comfort food is always something cold and creamy, right? I love yogurt. It's Greek yogurt is one of my favorite things, unsweetened. Like just I you know, I just love the taste of that. That would be what it would be for me. But I think it's got to be different for everyone else. It's got to be the food that is going to make you feel just really calm and comfortable and supported, right? I feel like I fed my belly and my soul at the same time.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Comfort food, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, that's right. If mac and cheese is your comfort food, then make sure the
I'm
Mac
very sure my
Daddy.
daughters would say it's mac and cheese. They would totally go to that.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Sweet indeed. Sweet indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're in the current year of 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I love this question because, well, I have an older daughter who you try to give advice to. Of course, that's the whole problem with being 25, right? You don't listen to anyone, right? So hopefully my, advice will manage to sink into myself. But, here's the thing is that I think that coming to this place of where I am now in my life, I realized that it's okay to fail. It's okay for things to not go right. It's okay to just barrel ahead and do what you're going to do. And having a comfort zone in that is just not something that I think there's this fear at 25, especially, I'm just going to say, especially for me as a woman at 25, there was like, I had to be perfect. That idea that failure could happen was just, almost scared you to non-action, right? And we can't have that in the world. And it took a lot of confidence building over time, over 25 more years, for me really to get to a place where I can say, yeah, you know what? So it doesn't work out. It's okay. There'll be another thing. There'll be something different tomorrow. You know what? I can pivot this. We have failures all the time in marketing programs that we do and in different investments that we make. And we have failures all the time. But when we don't look at it as like a fatal flaw in our personality and in our ability to, be great in the world, and we use it as a barrier to keep us from doing the next thing, that's not any good. And I think that, luckily over the 25 years from the time I was 25, that I really looked at the world and said, and took the failure as input. And so if I can say anything to my 25-year-old self is like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to keep moving, and it is okay to have confidence in your ability to just do things, whether or not the outcome is guaranteed.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. This episode's been hotter than fish grease, indeed. Usually, flip over to be like, hey, where can find you? But since you brought up failure, I have to ask you this magical question before that one. So, since you're a wonderful entrepreneur who is doing all sorts of amazing things, and I'm sure failure comes with your success, what was probably the greatest failure in your life that actually led to your greatest success?
Oh, that is so, I mean, there's always like little failures and other things along the way, but for me, a big one was, it's when we got in a lawsuit with Palm Computing and IDEO, the largest industrial design firm in the world, in the it was 2001, in fact. And that felt like a giant failure. It felt like the world was coming to an end. We had designed a product that they then came out with, and our patent had just issued, and then they came out with this product, and it was in the box with the Palm Pilot. And we thought, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to have our company succeed. We've invested all this money, gotten these investors, invested all this time. This feels like a huge failure. And, and we don't have money to fight this off. And when you can sit down and look at that failure and say, okay, well, what can we salvage? What can we do? What's next for us? When we looked at that, we pulled that all out into success, not in the way that we planned it, not in the way that we imagined it. We pivoted just about every single thing in our business, and we turned it around. And we turned it around right before 9/11. So for
Mm.
us to handle then 9/11 on top of it, which could have just completely devastated our business, and to have that not happen to us, so that we were able to return investment to our all of our angel investors the next year. When we look at that, I think to myself, is like, everything in that failure taught me how to be resilient, taught me how to pivot, taught me how to do all kinds of things that I use every single day today. And so while that felt like the end of the world, and I did go to bed crying the night that it happened, that every day after that has been a gift.
Man, oh man. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So glad I asked that one.
I am
So,
too. Yeah.
yes, indeed. It's a 21-year anniversary after that one. That's right. That's right,
Yeah.
indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, for those that need to check over all of your wonderful goods and services 21 times over, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, the best way is to go to podetize.com. And Podetize is a kind of merge of podcasting and monetization. So merge them together and podetize. And you can always find me if you want to connect with me on social media, on LinkedIn. That's really the best way to get in touch with me.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to the wonderful Tracy herself, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. This episode's definitely been hotter than fish grease and 5 wood-burning stoves, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And you only got maybe 2% of what she has to offer indeed. So check out all of her wonderful stuff we're going to put into the show notes as well. And she even has her own podcast that features all the podcast interviews she's been on. So that way, if one of the podcasts pod faded, but her gold is still alive on that wonderful link as well. So be sure to check it out like a library book, especially Podetize, because yours truly might be moving over to Podetize because, my goodness, the one-man army thing ain't so hot all the time. So any parting words before we close up shop, Tracy?
Well, Don, we are honored to have you. This is the thing that I love about it, is I love podcasting because I get to meet great, interesting people out there who are doing wonderful things, putting wonderful messages out in the world, and their perspectives on the world just give me a whole new energy to move on to what else I need to do. A more and more input, as I put it. I like input into the world, and you add a lot of that. So thank you for that.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.